Welcome to the world of Buddhist Audio Bookshelf. Today, we embark on a transformative journey as we delve into the Vimalakirti Nirdesa Sutra, a revered text within Buddhist literature. This scripture is a treasure trove of teachings, providing deep insights into the nature of reality, wisdom, and the path to enlightenment. We invite you to subscribe, like, and share this content to help expand the reach of these teachings, allowing more individuals to benefit from the profound wisdom of the Vimalakirti Nirdesa Sutra. Your engagement is invaluable in spreading these profound teachings. Let's get started. 6. The inconceivable liberation. Thereupon, the Venerable Sariputta had this thought: there is not even a single chair in this house. Where are these disciples and bodhisattvas going to sit? The Lakavi Vimalakirti read the thought of the Venerable Sariputta and said, "Reverend Sariputta, did you come here for the sake of the Dharma? Or did you come here for the sake of a chair?" Sariputta replied, "I came for the sake of the Dharma, not for the sake of a chair." Vimalakirti continued, "Reverend Sariputta, he who is interested in the Dharma is not interested even in his own body, much less in a chair. Reverend Sariputta, he who is interested in the Dharma has no interest in matter, sensation, intellect, motivation, or consciousness. He has no interest in these aggregates, or in the elements, or in the sense media. Interested in the Dharma, he has no interest in the realm of desire, the realm of matter, or the immaterial realm. Interested in the Dharma, he is not interested in attachment to the Buddha, attachment to the Dharma, or attachment to the Sangha. Reverend Sariputta, he who is interested in the Dharma is not interested in recognizing suffering, abandoning its origination, realizing its cessation, or practicing the path. Why? The Dharma is ultimately without formulation and without verbalization. Who verbalizes? Suffering should be recognized, origination should be eliminated, cessation should be realized, the path should be practiced is not interested in the Dharma, but is interested in verbalization. Reverend Sariputta, the Dharma is calm and peaceful. Those who are engaged in production and destruction are not interested in the Dharma, are not interested in solitude, but are interested in production and destruction. Furthermore, Reverend Sariputta, the Dharma is without taint and free of defilement. He who is attached to anything, even to liberation, is not interested in the Dharma, but is interested in the taint of desire. The Dharma is not an object. He who pursues objects is not interested in the Dharma, but is interested in objects. The Dharma is without acceptance or rejection. He who holds on to things or lets go of things is not interested in the Dharma but is interested in holding and letting go. The Dharma is not a secure refuge. He who enjoys a secure refuge is not interested in the Dharma, but is interested in a secure refuge. The Dharma is without sign. He whose consciousness pursues signs is not interested in the Dharma, but is interested in signs. The Dharma is not a society. He who seeks to associate with the Dharma is not interested in the Dharma, but is interested in association. The Dharma is not a sight, a sound, a category, or an idea. He who is involved in sights, sounds, categories, and ideas is not interested in the Dharma, but is interested in sights, sounds, categories, and ideas. Reverend Sariputta, the Dharma is free of compounded things and uncompounded things. He who adheres to compounded things and uncompounded things is not interested in the Dharma, but is interested in adhering to compounded things and uncompounded things. Thereupon, Reverend Sariputta, if you are interested in the Dharma, you should take no interest in anything. When Vimalakirti had spoken this discourse, 500 gods obtained the purity of the Dharma in viewing all things. Then, the Lakavi Vimalakirti said to the Crown Prince, Manjusri, Manjusri, you have already been in innumerable hundreds of thousands of Buddha fields throughout the universes of the 10 directions. In which Buddha field did you see the best lion thrones with the finest qualities? Manjusri replied, Noble sir, if one crosses the Buddha fields to the east, which are more numerous than all the grains of sand of 32 Ganges rivers, one will discover a universe called Maradvaja. There dwells a Tathagata called Muraprataparaja. His body measures 8,400,000 leagues in height, and the height of his throne is 6,800,000 leagues. The bodhisattvas there are 4,200,000 leagues tall, and their own thrones are 3,400,000 leagues high. Noble sir, the finest and most superb thrones exist in that universe Meridvaja, which is the Buddha field of the Tathagata Marapratipraja. At that moment, the Lakavi Vimalakirti, having focused himself in concentration, performed a miraculous feat such that the Lord Tathagata Marapratipraja, in the universe Meridvaja, sent to this universe 3,200,000 thrones. These thrones were so tall, spacious, and beautiful that the Bodhisattva's great disciples, Sakras, Brahmas, Lokapalas, and other gods, had never before seen the like. The thrones descended from the sky and came to rest in the house of the Lakavi Vimalakirti. The 3,200,000 thrones arranged themselves without crowding, and the house seemed to enlarge itself accordingly. The great city of Visali did not become obscured, neither did the land of Jambudvipa, nor the world of 4 continents. Everything else appeared just as it was before. Then, the Lakavi Vimalakirti said to the young prince Manjusri, Manjusri, let the bodhisattvas be seated on these thrones, having transformed their bodies to a suitable size. Then, those bodhisattvas who had attained to super-knowledges transformed their bodies to a height of 4,200,000 leagues and sat upon the thrones. But the beginner bodhisattvas were not able to transform themselves to sit upon the thrones. Then, the Lakavi Vimalakirti taught these beginner bodhisattvas a teaching that enabled them to attain the 5 super-knowledges, and, having attained them, they transformed their bodies to a height of 4,200,000 leagues and sat upon the thrones. But still the great disciples were not able to seat themselves upon the thrones. The Lakavi Vimalakirti said to the Venerable Sariputra, Reverend Sariputra, take your seat upon a throne. He replied, good sir, the thrones are too big and too high, and I cannot sit upon them. Vimalakirti said, Reverend Sariputra, bow down to the Tathagata Marapratipraja, and you will be able to take your seat. Then, the great disciples bowed down to the Tathagata Marapratipraja, and they were seated upon the thrones. Then, the Venerable Sariputra said to the Lakavi Vimalakirti, Noble sir, it is astonishing that these thousands of thrones, so big and so high, should fit into such a small house, and that the great city of Visali, the villages, cities, kingdoms, capitals of Jambudvipa, the other 3 continents, the abodes of the gods, the Nagas, the Yaksas, the Gandharvas, the Asuras, the Garudas, the Kamaras, and the Maharagas, that all of these should appear without any obstacle, just as they were before. The Lakavi Vimalakirti replied, Reverend Sariputra, for the Tathagatas and the Bodhisattvas, there is a liberation called inconceivable. The Bodhisattva who lives in the inconceivable liberation can put the king of mountains, Sumeru, which is so high, so great, so noble, and so vast, into a mustard seed. He can perform this feat without enlarging the mustard seed, and without shrinking Mount Sumeru. And the deities of the assembly of the 4 Maharajas and of the Tristrimsa heavens do not even know where they are. Only those beings who are destined to be disciplined by miracles see and understand the putting of the king of mountains, Sumeru, into the mustard seed. That, Reverend Sariputra, is an entrance to the domain of the inconceivable liberation of the Bodhisattvas. Furthermore, Reverend Sariputra, the Bodhisattva who lives in the inconceivable liberation, can pour into a single pore of his skin all the waters of the 4 great oceans, without injuring the water animals such as fish, tortoises, crocodiles, frogs, and other creatures, and without the Nagas, Yaksas, Gandharvas, and Asuras even being aware of where they are. And the whole operation is visible without any injury or disturbance to any of those living beings. Such a bodhisattva can pick up with his right hand this billion-world galactic universe, as if it were a potter's wheel, and, spinning it round, throw it beyond universes as numerous as the sands of the Ganges, without the living beings therein knowing their motion or its origin, and he can catch it and put it back in its place, without the living beings suspecting their coming and going, and yet the whole operation is visible. Furthermore, Reverend Sariputra, there are beings who become disciplined after an immense period of evolution, and there are also those who are disciplined after a short period of evolution. The bodhisattva who lives in the inconceivable liberation, for the sake of disciplining those living beings who are disciplined through immeasurable periods of evolution, can make the passing of a week seem like the passing of an eon, and he can make the passing of an eon seem like the passing of a week for those who are disciplined through a short period of evolution. The living beings who are disciplined through an immeasurable period of evolution actually perceive a week to be the passing of an eon, and those disciplined by a short period of evolution actually perceive an eon to be the passing of a week. Thus, a bodhisattva who lives in the inconceivable liberation can manifest all the splendors of the virtues of all the Buddha fields within a single Buddha field. Likewise, he can place all living beings in the palm of his right hand and can show them with the supernatural speed of thought all the Buddha fields without ever leaving his own Buddha field. He can display in a single pour all the offerings ever offered to all the Buddhas of the 10 directions, and the orbs of all the suns, moons, and stars of the 10 directions. He can inhale all the hurricanes of the cosmic wind atmospheres of the 10 directions into his mouth, without harming his own body, and without letting the forests and the grasses of the Buddha fields be flattened. He can take all the masses of fire of all the supernovas that ultimately consume all the universes of all the Buddha fields into his stomach without interfering with their functions. Having crossed Buddha fields as numerous as the sands of the Ganges downward, and having taken up a Buddha field, he can rise up through Buddha fields as numerous as the sands of the Ganges, and place it on high, just as a strong man may pick up a jujube leaf on the point of a needle. Thus, a bodhisattva who lives in the inconceivable liberation can magically transform any kind of living being into a universal monarch, a Lokapala, a Sakra, a Brahma, a disciple, a solitary sage, a bodhisattva, and even into a Buddha. The bodhisattva can transform miraculously all the cries and noises, superior, mediocre, and inferior, of all living beings of the 10 directions, into the voice of the Buddha, with the words of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, having them proclaim, impermanent, miserable, empty, selfless. And he can cause them to recite the words and sounds of all the teachings taught by all the Buddhas of the 10 directions. Reverend Sariputra, I have shown you only a small part of the entrance into the domain of the bodhisattva who lives in the inconceivable liberation. Reverend Sariputra, to explain to you the teaching of the full entrance into the domain of the bodhisattva who lives in the inconceivable liberation, would require more than an eon, and even more than that. Then, the Patriarch Mahakasyapa, having heard this teaching of the inconceivable liberation of the bodhisattvas, was amazed, and he said to the Venerable Sariputra, Venerable Sariputra, if one were to show a variety of things to a person blind from birth, he would not be able to see a single thing. Likewise, Venerable Sariputra, when this door of the inconceivable liberation is taught, all the disciples and solitary sages are sightless, like the man blind from birth, and cannot comprehend even a single cause of the inconceivable liberation. Who is there among the wise who, hearing about this inconceivable liberation, does not conceive the spirit of unexcelled perfect enlightenment? As for us, whose faculties are deteriorated, like a burned and rotten seed, what else can we do if we do not become receptive to this great vehicle? We, all the disciples and solitary sages, upon hearing this teaching of the Dharma, should utter a cry of regret that would shake this billion-world galactic universe. And as for the bodhisattvas, when they hear of this inconceivable liberation, they should be as joyful as a young crown prince when he takes the diadem and is anointed, and they should increase to the utmost their devotion to this inconceivable liberation. Indeed, what could the entire host of Maras ever do to one who is devoted to this inconceivable liberation? When the Patriarch Mahakasyapa had uttered this discourse, 32,000 gods conceived the spirit of unexcelled perfect enlightenment. Then the Lakavi Vimalakirti said to the Patriarch Mahakasyapa, Reverend Mahakasyapa, the Maras who play the devil in the innumerable universes of the 10 directions are all bodhisattvas dwelling in the inconceivable liberation, who are playing the devil in order to develop living beings through their skill and liberative technique. Reverend Mahakasyapa, all the miserable beggars who come to the bodhisattvas of the innumerable universes of the 10 directions to ask for a hand, a foot, an ear, a nose, some blood, muscles, bones, marrow, an eye, a torso, a head, a limb, a member, a throne, a kingdom, a country, a wife, a son, a daughter, a slave girl, a horse, an elephant, a chariot, a cart, gold, silver, jewels, pearls, conches, crystal, coral, beryl, treasures, food, drink, elixirs, and clothes. These demanding beggars are usually bodhisattvas living in the inconceivable liberation who, through their skill in liberative technique, wish to test and thus demonstrate the firmness of the high resolve of the bodhisattvas. Why? Reverend Mahakasyapa, the bodhisattvas demonstrate that firmness by means of terrible austerities. Ordinary persons have no power to be thus demanding of bodhisattvas unless they are granted the opportunity. They are not capable of killing and depriving in that manner without being freely given the chance. Reverend Mahakasyapa, just as a glowworm cannot eclipse the light of the sun, so Reverend Mahakasyapa, it is not possible without special allowance that an ordinary person can thus attack and deprive a bodhisattva. Reverend Mahakasyapa, just as a donkey could not muster an attack on a wild elephant, even so, Reverend Mahakasyapa, one who is not himself a bodhisattva, cannot harass another bodhisattva, and only a bodhisattva can tolerate the harassment of another bodhisattva. Reverend Mahakasyapa, such is the introduction to the power of the knowledge of liberative technique of the bodhisattvas who live in the inconceivable liberation. 7. The goddess. Thereupon, Manjusri, the crown prince, addressed the Lakavi Vimalakirti. Good sir, how should a bodhisattva regard all living beings? Vimalakirti replied, Manjusri, a bodhisattva should regard all living beings as a wise man regards the reflection of the moon in water, or as magicians regard men created by magic. He should regard them as being like a face in a mirror, like the water of a mirage, like the sound of an echo, like a mass of clouds in the sky, like the previous moment of a ball of foam, like the appearance and disappearance of a bubble of water, like the core of a plant and tree, like a flash of lightning, like the 5th great element, like the 7th sense medium, like the appearance of matter in an immaterial realm, like a sprout from a rotten seed, like a tortoise hair coat, like the fun of games for one who wishes to die, like the egoistic views of a stream winner, like a third rebirth of a once returner, like the descent of a non-returner into a womb, like the existence of desire, hatred, and folly in a saint, like thoughts of avarice, immorality, wickedness, and hostility in a bodhisattva who has attained tolerance, like the instincts of passions in a Tathagata, like the perception of color in one blind from birth, like the inhalation and exhalation of an ascetic absorbed in the meditation of cessation, like the track of a bird in the sky, like the erection of a eunuch, like the pregnancy of a barren woman, like the unproduced passions of an emanated incarnation of the Tathagata, like dream visions seen after waking, like the passions of one who is free of conceptualizations, like fire burning without fuel, like the reincarnation of one who has attained ultimate liberation. Precisely thus, Manjusri, does a bodhisattva who realizes the ultimate selflessness consider all beings. Manjusri then asked further, Noble sir, if a bodhisattva considers all living beings in such a way, how does he generate the great love toward them? Vimalakirti replied, Manjusri, when a bodhisattva considers all living beings in this way, he thinks, just as I have realized the Dharma, so should I teach it to living beings. Thereby, he generates the love that is truly a refuge for all living beings, the love that is peaceful because free of grasping, the love that is not feverish because free of passions, the love that accords with reality because it is equanimous in all 3 times, the love that is without conflict because free of the violence of the passions, the love that is non-dual because it is involved neither with the external nor with the internal, the love that is imperturbable because totally ultimate. Thereby he generates the love that is firm, its high resolve unbreakable, like a diamond, the love that is pure, purified in its intrinsic nature, the love that is even, its Aspirations being equal, the saint's love that has eliminated its enemy, the bodhisattva's love that continuously develops living beings, the Tathagata's love that understands reality, the Buddha's love that causes living beings to awaken from their sleep, the love that is spontaneous because it is fully enlightened spontaneously, the love that is enlightenment because it is unity of experience, the love that has no presumption because it has eliminated attachment and aversion, the love that is great compassion because it infuses the Mahayana with radiance, the love that is never exhausted because it acknowledges voidness and selflessness, the love that is giving because it bestows the gift of Dharma free of the tight fist of a bad teacher. The love that is morality because it improves immoral living beings, the love that is tolerance because it protects both self and others, the love that is effort because it takes responsibility for all living beings, the love that is contemplation because it refrains from indulgence in tastes, the love that is wisdom because it causes attainment at the proper time, the love that is liberative technique because it shows the way everywhere, the love that is without formality because it is pure in motivation, the love that is without deviation because it acts from decisive motivation, the love that is high resolve because it is without passions, the love that is without deceit because it is not artificial, the love that is happiness because it introduces living beings to the happiness of the Buddha. Such, Manjusri, is the great love of a bodhisattva. Manjusri. What is the great compassion of a bodhisattva? Vimalakirti. It is the giving of all accumulated roots of virtue to all living beings. Manjusri. What is the great joy of the bodhisattva? Vimalakirti. It is to be joyful and without regret in giving. Manjusri. What is the equanimity of the bodhisattva? Vimalakirti. It is what benefits both self and others. Manjusri. To what should one resort when terrified by fear of life? Vimalakirti. Manjusri, a bodhisattva who is terrified by fear of life, should resort to the magnanimity of the Buddha. Manjusri. Where should he who wishes to resort to the magnanimity of the Buddha take his stand? Vimalakirti. He should stand in equanimity toward all living beings. Manjusri. Where should he who wishes to stand in equanimity toward all living beings take his stand? Vimalakirti. He should live for the liberation of all living beings. Manjusri. What should he who wishes to liberate all living beings do? Vimalakirti. He should liberate them from their passions. Manjusri. How should he who wishes to eliminate passions apply himself? Vimalakirti. He should apply himself appropriately. Manjusri. How should he apply himself to apply himself appropriately? Vimalakirti. He should apply himself to productionlessness and to destructionlessness. Manjusri. What is not produced? And what is not destroyed? Vimalakirti. Evil is not produced and good is not destroyed. Manjusri. What is the root of good and evil? Vimalakirti. Materiality is the root of good and evil. Manjusri. What is the root of materiality? Vimalakirti. Desire is the root of materiality. Manjusri. What is the root of desire and attachment? Vimalakirti. Unreal construction is the root of desire. Manjusri. What is the root of unreal construction? Vimalakirti. The false concept is its root. Manjusri. What is the root of the false concept? Vimalakirti. Baselessness. Manjusri. What is the root of baselessness? Vimalakirti. Manjusri. When something is baseless, how can it have any root? Therefore, all things stand on the root which is baseless. Thereupon, a certain goddess who lived in that house, having heard this teaching of the Dharma of the great heroic bodhisattvas, and being delighted, pleased, and overjoyed, manifested herself in a material body, and showered the great spiritual heroes, the bodhisattvas, and the great disciples with heavenly flowers. When the flowers fell on the bodies of the bodhisattvas, they fell off on the floor, but when they fell on the bodies of the great disciples, they stuck to them and did not fall. The great disciples shook the flowers and even tried to use their magical powers, but still the flowers would not shake off. Then, the goddess said to the venerable Sariputra, Reverend Sariputra, why do you shake these flowers? Sariputra replied, Goddess, these flowers are not proper for religious persons, and so we are trying to shake them off. The goddess said, Do not say that, Reverend Sariputra. Why? These flowers are proper indeed. Why? Such flowers have neither constructive thought nor discrimination. But the elder Sariputra has both constructive thought and discrimination. Reverend Sariputra, impropriety for one who has renounced the world for the discipline of the rightly taught Dharma, consists of constructional thought and discrimination, yet the elders are full of such thoughts. One who is without such thoughts is always proper. Reverend Sariputra, see how these flowers do not stick to the bodies of these great spiritual heroes, the Bodhisattvas. This is because they have eliminated constructional thoughts and discriminations. For example, evil spirits have power over fearful men, but cannot disturb the fearless. Likewise, those intimidated by fear of the world are in the power of forms, sounds, smells, tastes, and textures, which do not disturb those who are free from fear of the passions inherent in the constructive world. Thus, these flowers stick to the bodies of those who have not eliminated their instincts for the passions, and do not stick to the bodies of those who have eliminated their instincts. Therefore, the flowers do not stick to the bodies of these bodhisattvas, who have abandoned all instincts. Then the venerable Sariputra said to the goddess, Goddess, how long have you been in this house? The goddess replied, I have been here as long as the elder has been in liberation. Sariputra said, Then, have you been in this house for quite some time? The goddess said, Has the elder been in liberation for quite some time? At that, the elder Sariputra fell silent. The goddess continued, Elder, you are foremost of the wise. Why do you not speak? Now, when it is your turn, you do not answer the question. Sariputra. Since liberation is inexpressible, Goddess, I do not know what to say. Goddess. All the syllables pronounced by the elder have the nature of liberation. Why? Liberation is neither internal nor external, nor can it be apprehended apart from them. Likewise, syllables are neither internal nor external, nor can they be apprehended anywhere else. Therefore, Reverend Sariputra, do not point to liberation by abandoning speech. Why? The holy liberation is the equality of all things. Sariputra. Goddess, is not liberation the freedom from desire, hatred, and folly? Goddess. Liberation is freedom from desire, hatred, and folly. That is the teaching of the excessively proud. But those free of pride are taught that the very nature of desire, hatred, and folly is itself liberation. Sariputra. Excellent. Excellent, Goddess. Pray, what have you attained, what have you realized, that you have such eloquence? Goddess. I have attained nothing, Reverend Sariputra. I have no realization. Therefore I have such eloquence. Whoever thinks, I have attained, I have realized, is overly proud in the discipline of the well-taught Dharma. Sariputra. Goddess, do you belong to the disciple vehicle, to the solitary vehicle, or to the great vehicle? Goddess. I belong to the disciple vehicle when I teach it to those who need it. I belong to the solitary vehicle when I teach the 12 links of dependent origination to those who need them. And, since I never abandon the great compassion, I belong to the great vehicle, as all need that teaching to attain ultimate liberation. Nevertheless, Reverend Sariputra, just as one cannot smell the castor plant in a magnolia wood, but only the magnolia flowers, so, Reverend Sariputra, living in this house, which is redolent with the perfume of the virtues of the Buddha qualities, one does not smell the perfume of the disciples and the solitary sages. Reverend Sariputra, the Sakras, the Brahmas, the Lokapalas, the Devas, Nagas, Yaksas, Gandharvas, Asuras, Garudas, Kamaras, and Maharagas who live in this house, hear the Dharma from the mouth of this holy man, and, enticed by the perfume of the virtues of the Buddha qualities, proceed to conceive this spirit of enlightenment. Reverend Sariputra, I have been in this house for 12 years, and I have heard no discourses concerning the disciples and solitary sages, but have heard only those concerning the great love, the great compassion, and the inconceivable qualities of the Buddha. Reverend Zarathustra, 8 strange and wonderful things manifest themselves constantly in this house. What are these 8? A light of golden hue shines here constantly, so bright that it is hard to distinguish day and night, and neither the moon nor the sun shines here distinctly. That is the first wonder of this house. Furthermore, Reverend Zarathustra, whoever enters this house is no longer troubled by his passions from the moment he is within. That is the second strange and wonderful thing. Furthermore, Reverend Zarathustra, this house is never forsaken by Sakra, Brahma, the Lokapalas, and the Bodhisattvas from all the other Buddha fields. That is the third strange and wonderful thing. Furthermore, Reverend Zarathustra, this house is never empty of the sounds of the Dharma, the discourse on the 6 transcendences, and the discourses of the irreversible wheel of the Dharma. That is the fourth strange and wonderful thing. Furthermore, Reverend Zarathustra, in this house one always hears the rhythms, songs, and music of gods and men, and from this music constantly resounds the sound of the infinite Dharma of the Buddha. That is the fifth strange and wonderful thing. Furthermore, Reverend Zarathustra, in this house there are always 4 inexhaustible treasures, replete with all kinds of jewels, which never decrease, although all the poor and wretched may partake to their satisfaction. That is the sixth strange and wonderful thing. Furthermore, Reverend Zarathustra, at the wish of this good man, to this house come the innumerable Tathagatas of the 10 directions, such as the Tathagatas Sakyamuni, Amitabha, Aksabhya, Radnasri, Radnarsis, Radnakandra, Radnavyuha, Dusprasaha, Sarvardhasiddha, Radnabahula, Simhakirti, Simhisvara, and so forth. And when they come they teach the door of Dharma called the secrets of the Tathagatas, and then depart. That is the seventh strange and wonderful thing. Furthermore, Reverend Zarathustra, all the splendors of the abodes of the gods and all the splendors of the fields of the Buddhas shine forth in this house. That is the eighth strange and wonderful thing. Reverend Zarathustra, these 8 strange and wonderful things are seen in this house. Who then, seeing such inconceivable things, would believe the teaching of the disciples? Zarathustra, Goddess, what prevents you from transforming yourself out of your female state? Goddess, although I have sought my female state for these 12 years, I have not yet found it. Reverend Zarathustra, if a magician were to incarnate a woman by magic, would you ask her, what prevents you from transforming yourself out of your female state? Zarathustra, no. Such a woman would not really exist, so what would there be to transform? Goddess, just so, Reverend Zarathustra, all things do not really exist. Now, would you think, what prevents one whose nature is that of a magical incarnation from transforming herself out of her female state? Thereupon, the goddess employed her magical power to cause the elder Zarathustra to appear in her form, and to cause herself to appear in his form. Then the goddess, transformed into Zarathustra, said to Zarathustra, transformed into a goddess, Reverend Zarathustra, what prevents you from transforming yourself out of your female state? And Zarathustra, transformed into the goddess, replied, I no longer appear in the form of a male. My body has changed into the body of a woman. I do not know what to transform. The goddess continued, if the elder could again change out of the female state, then all women could also change out of their female states. All women appear in the form of women in just the same way as the elder appears in the form of a woman. While they are not women in reality, they appear in the form of women. With this in mind, the Buddha said, in all things, there is neither male nor female. Then, the goddess released her magical power, and each returned to his ordinary form. She then said to him, Reverend Zarathustra, what have you done with your female form? Zarathustra, I neither made it, nor did I change it. Goddess, just so, all things are neither made nor changed, and that they are not made and not changed, that is the teaching of the Buddha. Zarathustra, Goddess, where will you be born when you transmigrate after death? Goddess, I will be born where all the magical incarnations of the Tathagata are born. Zarathustra, but the emanated incarnations of the Tathagata do not transmigrate, nor are they born. Goddess, all things and living beings are just the same, they do not transmigrate nor are they born. Sariputra. Goddess, how soon will you attain the perfect enlightenment of Buddhahood? Goddess. At such time as you, elder, become endowed once more with the qualities of an ordinary individual, then will I attain the perfect enlightenment of Buddhahood. Sariputra. Goddess, it is impossible that I should become endowed once more with the qualities of an ordinary individual. Goddess. Just so, Reverend Sariputra, it is impossible that I should attain the perfect enlightenment of Buddhahood. Why? Because perfect enlightenment stands upon the impossible. Because it is impossible, no one attains the perfect enlightenment of Buddhahood. Sariputra. But the Tathagata has declared. The Tathagatas, who are as numerous as the sands of the Ganges, have attained perfect Buddhahood, are attaining perfect Buddhahood, and will go on attaining perfect Buddhahood. Goddess. Reverend Sariputra, the expression, the Buddhas of the past, present and future, is a conventional expression made up of a certain number of syllables. The Buddhas are neither past, nor present, nor future. Their enlightenment transcends the three times. But tell me, elder, have you attained sainthood? Sariputra. It is attained, because there is no attainment. Goddess. Just so, there is perfect enlightenment because there is no attainment of perfect enlightenment. Then the Lakavi Vimalakirti said to the Venerable Elder Sariputra, Reverend Sariputra, this goddess has already served 92 million billion Buddhas. She plays with the super-knowledges. She has truly succeeded in all her vows. She has gained the tolerance of the birthlessness of things. She has actually attained irreversibility. She can live wherever she wishes on the strength of her vow to develop living beings. Thank you for joining us in this enlightening episode. As we reach the conclusion of this video, we extend our warm invitation to continue your journey with us through the next episode of the Vimalakirti Nirdesa Sutra. Your support in the form of likes, shares, and subscriptions is invaluable in spreading the teachings of Buddha to a wider audience. To make your exploration easier, we've provided a complete video playlist in the video description. By joining us on this path to enlightenment and engaging with these teachings, you contribute to the dissemination of profound wisdom. Thank you for your participation and dedication to the teachings of Buddha.